Let me set the scene. I'm a guy who likes things simple. Call me Jake, mid-30s, a freelance graphic designer who traded city noise for a cozy mountain cabin in the Smokies. Picture cedar walls, a creaky porch swing, and a view of mist rolling over pine-covered hills. It's not a mansion, but it's mine, paid off with years of grinding through client revisions. My happy place. My escape from the world's nonsense. Or so I thought, until Karen, oh, sweet, entitled Karen, decided my cabin was her personal Airbnb cash cow. Last summer, I landed a big contract in Seattle. 6 months, fully remote, but it meant leaving my cabin for the first time since I'd moved in. I wasn't worried. I had a neighbor, old man Carl, who'd keep an eye on the place. Carl's the kind of guy who'd rather wrestle a bear than deal with people, so I trusted him to scare off any trouble. Spoiler, Carl's great with bears, not so much with conniving Karens. I locked up, left Carl my spare key, and headed west. The cabin's tucked at the end of a dirt road, no Wi-Fi, no cell service unless you climb halfway up a ridge. Perfect for disconnecting. I figured I'd come back to nothing but pine needles on the porch, and maybe a raccoon trying to unionize the trash cans. Instead, I returned to a story so wild, it'd make Reddit's Entitled People subreddit spontaneously combust. It started with a text from my cousin, Mia, who lives an hour away in Knoxville. She's the nosy type, always scrolling local Facebook groups for drama. Hey, Jake, her message read. Why's your cabin listed on Airbnb for $175 a night? You moonlighting as a landlord now. I laughed it off, thinking she'd mixed up my place with some other rustic shack. I mean, who'd have the audacity to rent out my house? I sent her a screenshot of my lock screen, a photo of the cabin's front porch, and asked for the listing link. The link loaded, and there it was, my cabin. My exact cedar siding, my crooked mailbox, even my stupid gnome statue I bought on a whim at a flea market. The listing called it Rustic Smoky Mountain Retreat, with a glowing description about serene vibes and authentic mountain living. The photos showed my leather couch, my coffee table with the burn mark from a campfire spark, my damn bed with the plaid quilt my grandma made. My blood pressure spiked so fast I could have powered a small city. I called Mia, who was already deep in detective mode. Jake, this has been up for weeks. There are reviews. People are raving about the host, Karen, who leaves mints on the pillows. Mints? On my pillows? I don't even own mints. I'm a leave a half-eaten granola bar on the counter kind of guy. Mia kept going. The listing's booked solid through next month. Karen's making bank. I could hear the smirk in her voice, but I wasn't laughing. Someone had turned my home into their side hustle, and I was 2,000 miles away. I pulled up the Airbnb app, my hands shaking so bad I nearly dropped my phone. The reviews mentioned Karen's warm hospitality and the charming host who knows the area. One review complained about occasional power flickers. Yeah, because the cabin's wiring is older than Carl. Another praised the cozy fireplace. My fireplace. My logs. My everything. I felt like I'd been robbed, but instead of taking my stuff, they'd sold the whole experience of my life. First things first, I needed to figure out who this Karen was. I called Carl, expecting him to grumble about trespassers. Instead, he sounded confused. Ain't seen nobody, Jake. Been quiet up here. Checked your place last week, looked fine. I pressed him. Carl, you sure? Nobody's been in my house. He paused, then muttered, well, there was that lady who said she was your cousin, dropping off supplies. Had a key, so I didn't think much of it. My cousin. Mia's the only cousin I've got, and she's not exactly hiking up dirt roads to deliver groceries. Describe her, I said, my voice tight. Carl grumbled. Middle-aged, blonde. Wore those big sunglasses like she's hiding from the FBI. Talked like she owned the mountain. Oh, great. A wild Karen in her natural habitat. Oversized sunglasses, an aura of entitlement, and apparently my house key. I asked Carl if he'd given her the spare. Nah, he said. She had one already. Said you gave it to her. My stomach dropped. I hadn't given anyone a key except Carl. Someone had either picked my lock or pulled off a heist worthy of a Netflix special. I spent the next hour pacing my tiny Seattle apartment, the city's drizzle mocking my mood. I checked the Airbnb listing again. The host profile was bare bones. Karen S., local property manager, loves sharing the Smoky Mountain experience. No photo, no last name, just a generic email and a phone number that went straight to voicemail. I left a message, calm but firm. This is the owner of the cabin you're renting. Call me back, or we're going to have a problem. No response. Shocker. By now, my brain was in overdrive. How did this Karen get into my house? How long had she been renting it? And how much money was she pocketing? At $175 a night, with bookings for weeks, she was raking in thousands. My thousands. My cabin's not some cookie-cutter rental. It's got my art on the walls, my dad's old fishing gear in the closet. Every creak of that floor is mine. And this woman was selling it like she'd built it with her own manicured hands. I called Mia back. Find out everything you can about this, Karen, I said. Check the Facebook groups, ask around. I'm flying back tomorrow. Mia, bless her gossip-loving heart, was already on it. I'll dig up dirt faster than a mole in a garden, she promised. I booked a red-eye flight. My jaw clenched so tight I could have cracked walnuts. Karen didn't know it yet, but she'd just poked a bear. And not the kind Carl could handle. As I packed, I couldn't stop picturing her. This faceless Karen, strutting through my cabin, tossing mints on my pillows like some budget hotel magnate. I imagined her counting her Airbnb cash, probably sipping a latte in those ridiculous sunglasses. Oh, Karen, I thought, you've got no idea who you're messing with. I'm not just some guy with a cabin. I'm a guy with a grudge, a Wi-Fi connection, and a cousin who lives for drama. Game on. The red-eye flight from Seattle to Knoxville was a special kind of torture. Picture me, Jake, wedged between a guy snoring like a chainsaw and a kid who thought my armrest was a drum set. I spent the 5 hours sipping terrible coffee, refreshing the Airbnb listing, and imagining all the ways I'd make this Karen regret ever stepping foot in my cabin. By the time I landed, my eyes were bloodshot, my patience was thinner than the airplane's napkins, and my phone was blowing up with texts from Mia. She'd gone full Sherlock, and I was ready to join the hunt. Mia picked me up at the airport, her beat-up Honda rattling like it was auditioning for a demolition derby. You look like you've been through a blender, she said, tossing me a gas station energy drink. I chugged it, the artificial cherry flavor burning my throat, and asked, "What V you got on Karen?" Mia's grin was pure chaos. "Oh, you're gonna love this. Our girl's a local legend, and not the good kind." She handed me her phone, opened to a Facebook group called Smoky Mountain Neighbors and Censored. I scrolled through a thread titled Karen S., at it again. Apparently, Karen S., full name Karen Swanson, was the neighborhood's self-appointed queen of petty tyranny. The thread was a goldmine of complaints. She'd fined a guy for parking his truck too close to her mailbox, reported a family's backyard bonfire as a fire hazard, and once tried to ban a kid's lemonade stand for unpermitted commerce. This woman wasn't just a Karen. She was the final boss of Karens, wielding a clipboard like a scepter and a superiority complex that could block out the sun. Mia had cross-referenced the Airbnb listings phone number with a local real estate page. Karen Swanson, your friendly Smoky Mountain property manager, ran a small rental business. Her website was a tacky mess of stock photos and buzzwords like bespoke and curated experiences. No mention of my cabin, of course, but the reviews matched the Airbnb ones. Karen's so attentive. Loved the mints. I wanted to scream. My cabin wasn't her curated anything. It was my home, and she was turning it into her personal ATM. We drove straight to the cabin, the dirt road crunching under Mia's tires. The Smokies loomed around us, pines casting long shadows in the morning light. I half expected to find Karen lounging on my porch, counting her ill-gotten cash. Instead, the place looked normal. Too normal. The gnome statue was still there, slightly tilted like it was judging me for leaving. The porch swing creaked in the breeze. But something felt off. The welcome mat was new, a tacky live, laugh, love monstrosity I'd never buy. And there was a faint smell of lavender air freshener, like someone was trying to cover up their crimes with a $2 candle. I unlocked the door, my key sticking slightly. Had someone tampered with it? Inside, my worst fears materialized. My couch had a new throw blanket, some hideous floral thing that screamed Karen aesthetic. There were cheap wine glasses in the kitchen, a guest book on the coffee table with entries like, "Thanks for the cozy stay, Karen," and a stack of takeout menus from places I'd never heard of. My fishing gear was shoved in a closet, replaced by a yoga mat. A yoga mat. I'm about as flexible as a rusty hinge, and now my cabin was a wellness retreat? Mia, poking through a drawer, held up a pack of mints. "Exhibit A," she said, tossing them to me. I caught them, the plastic crinkling in my fist. "She's been here, Jake. Living her best scam life." I flipped through the guest book, my anger simmering. Dates, names, glowing reviews. Karen had been renting my place since July, 2 weeks after I left. At $175 a night, with near-constant bookings, she'd pocketed at least $15,000. My hands shook as I calculated it. That was my money, my piece. My grandma's quilt, now probably stained with some tourist Merlot. I called Carl, who ambled over from his place down the road, his boots kicking up dust. "Carl, tell me everything about this cousin of mine," I said, barely keeping my voice steady. He scratched his beard, looking guilty. "She showed up maybe a month ago. Had a key. Said you sent her to check the pipes." I didn't ask questions. She was in and out, brought some bags. Bags. My mind raced. Had she copied my key? Stolen it? I pressed Carl for details. What did she look like? His description matched the Facebook thread: blonde, sunglasses, a voice that could curdle milk. Drove a white SUV, he added. Had a bumper sticker, Property Manager of the Year. Mia snorted. Of course she's got an award for herself. Probably gave it to herself too. I wasn't laughing. I was plotting. First, I needed proof. I called Airbnb, navigating their labyrinth of automated menus until I got a human. "My property's being listed without my consent," I explained, my voice sharp enough to cut glass. The rep sounded bored, promising to escalate the issue and freeze the listing. I wasn't holding my breath. Next, I checked my security camera, a cheap one I'd installed above the porch. It was offline. Of course, Karen wasn't just bold, she was calculated. Mia, meanwhile, was still scrolling. "Jake, look at this." She showed me a post from a local hikers group, a photo of my cabin, captioned, "Perfect getaway, thanks to Karen S." The post had comments from renters, some mentioning minor issues, like a leaky faucet or a flickering porch light. My faucet didn't leak. My lights didn't flicker. Karen wasn't just renting my place. She was neglecting it. I pictured her ignoring my ancient plumbing while she counted her cash, and my blood boiled. I needed to confront her, but first, I needed evidence. Mia suggested staking out the cabin. Renters might show up. We catch them, we get proof. It was a solid plan. We parked Mia's car behind some trees, out of sight, and waited. The air smelled of pine and impending revenge. Around noon, a minivan rolled up. A family piled out, lugging suitcases, clearly expecting a rustic retreat. I stepped onto the porch, arms crossed, and said, "Welcome to my house. Mind telling me who sent you?" The dad, a guy with a fanny pack and a confused frown, stammered. Karen? We booked through Airbnb." I forced a smile, my teeth grinding. "Karen's not the owner." "I am. Let's talk." As Mia snapped photos of their car and luggage, I knew this was just the beginning. Karen had no idea the storm coming her way, but I was about to make her regret every mint she'd ever left on my pillows. The minivan family stood on my porch, looking like they'd just been told their vacation was canceled by a reality TV twist. The dad, still clutching his fanny pack like a life preserver, stammered, "Wait, you're the owner?" But Karen said. I cut him off with a smile that felt more like a snarl. "Karen's a liar. This is my cabin. You've been scammed." The mom's eyes widened, and their 2 kids, oblivious, started chasing a squirrel across my lawn. Mia, ever the opportunist, was already snapping photos of their rental agreement on her phone, muttering, "This is gold." I invited them inside, partly to keep them calm, partly to see what else Karen had defiled. The family, let's call them the Wilsons, showed me their Airbnb confirmation. They'd paid $1,200 for a week, wired straight to Karen's PayPal. No wonder she was leaving mints. She was rolling in my money. The Wilsons were apologetic, saying Karen had seemed so professional with her welcome emails and local tips. I wanted to gag. My cabin's local tips are, don't feed the raccoons and don't fall off the ridge. Karen was out here playing Martha Stewart with my life. While Mia kept the Wilsons talking, I searched the cabin for more clues. The guest book was a treasure trove, 12 entries since July, each praising Karen's hospitality. One renter wrote, "Love the fresh towels." Fresh towels? My towels were so old they could star in a museum exhibit. Karen was clearly bringing her own supplies to keep up the charade. I found a receipt in the kitchen drawer for lavender air freshener and welcome basket supplies from a local dollar store, dated 3 weeks ago. The nerve of this woman, buying $5 candles to scent my house while she pocketed thousands. I called Airbnb again, this time armed with the Wilsons' booking details. The rep, slightly less bored than the last one, confirmed the listing was frozen pending investigation, but warned it could take weeks. Weeks? I didn't have weeks. Karen was probably sipping a margarita somewhere, planning her next scam. I needed to move faster. Mia, who'd now befriended the Wilsons' kids by bribing them with granola bars, suggested checking the local post office. If she's getting mail or packages here, we'll find her. We left the Wilsons at the cabin. They were too shell-shocked to leave yet, and drove to the post office in town, a tiny shack that smelled like damp paper and regret. The clerk, a woman with a perm straight out of the 80s, recognized Karen's name immediately. "Oh, her," she said, rolling her eyes. Always picking up client packages for her rental business. White SUV, big sunglasses, acts like she's running the Pentagon. I leaned in, keeping my voice casual. "She ever mention a cabin on Pine Ridge Road?" The clerk smirked. "Not directly, but she got a stack of mail rerouted there last month. Said it was her second property." Second property? My cabin was nobody's side hustle. I asked for details, but the clerk clammed up, citing privacy. Mia slipped her a $20, and suddenly privacy meant a printout of Karen's forwarding address. A P.O. box registered to Karen Swanson, plus a physical address in a gated community 20 miles away. Jackpot. I could feel the gears turning. Karen wasn't just a random opportunist. She was running a calculated operation, and my cabin was her crown jewel. Back at the cabin, the Wilsons were packing up, apologizing profusely. I told them to keep their money. It wasn't their fault, but to leave a detailed statement about their booking. They agreed, scribbling down everything. Karen's emails, her meet and greet at a nearby gas station, even her insistence on no refunds, no exceptions. The dad handed me a business card Karen had given them, glossy and cheap, with Swanson Properties in Comic Sans. I almost laughed. Comic Sans? This woman was a walking red flag. As the Wilsons drove off, Mia got a notification from the Facebook group. Someone had posted a new complaint about Karen. She'd tried to find a neighbor for excessive lawn decorations. A single gnome, ironically similar to mine. The comments were brutal, calling her HOA Karen and the dictator of Smoky Mountain Estates. One user, HikerDin69, claimed Karen had bragged about expanding her rental empire at a local bar. My rental empire, apparently. I screenshotted everything, my phone gallery turning into a digital war room. Then, my phone buzzed with a voicemail. Unknown number, but the voice was unmistakable, shrill, dripping with fake sincerity. "Jake, this is Karen Swanson. I heard you're upset about the cabin. Let's talk like adults, No need for drama." I played it again, her tone grating like nails on a chalkboard. Talk like adults? She'd broken into my home, rented it out, and was now lecturing me on maturity? The audacity was almost admirable, like a fox lecturing a hen on coop security. Mia, eavesdropping, cackled. "She's scared. You've got her rattled." I wasn't so sure. Karen didn't sound rattled. She sounded like she was planning her next move. I texted her back. "Meet me at the cabin tomorrow noon. Bring your lawyer if you want. We're talking." No response, but I knew she'd show. Karens like her thrive on confrontation, clutching their self-awarded Property Manager of the Year titles like shields. I wasn't planning a polite chat. I was planning a trap. That night, I stayed at the cabin, the familiar creak of the floorboards now feeling like a betrayal. Mia crashed on the couch, still scrolling for dirt. She found Karen's LinkedIn, which listed her as a real estate visionary with unparalleled expertise in Smoky Mountain hospitality. I snorted so hard I nearly choked. Visionary. The only vision here was me picturing her in handcuffs. As I drifted off, the wind howling outside, I couldn't shake the feeling that Karen was already one step ahead. She'd been playing this game for months. Tomorrow, I'd find out how good she really was. Morning broke over the Smokies, the kind of misty dawn that makes you want to sip coffee and forget the world. Except my world was currently occupied by a Karen-shaped nightmare who thought my cabin was her personal piggy bank. I stood on the porch, the air sharp with pine and the faint whiff of that cursed lavender air freshener. Mia was inside, brewing coffee so strong it could wake a coma patient, while I prepped for the noon showdown with Karen Swanson, self-proclaimed real estate visionary. My plan: stay calm, get her to admit something incriminating, and record every word. My phone was charged, my voice recorder app was ready, and my patience was on life support. Mia handed me a mug, her eyes gleaming with mischief. You think she'll show up with a lawyer, or just her ego? I smirked, the coffee burning my tongue. Her ego's big enough to need its own parking spot. We'd spent the night digging deeper into Karen's online trail. Mia found a Yelp page for Swanson properties, buried under one-star reviews. Pushy and unprofessional. Tried to charge me for a broken lamp that was already broken. Talks like she's doing you a favor by taking your money. Classic Karen. I saved every review, building my case like a digital Jenga tower. At 11:55, a white SUV rolled up the dirt road, its property manager of the year, bumper sticker glinting like a middle finger. Karen stepped out, blonde hair teased to high heaven, sunglasses perched on her head like a crown. She wore a blazer that screamed, I watched too many HGTV shows, and carried a leather notebook, probably filled with her manifesto on why she deserved my cabin. I leaned against the porch railing, arms crossed, forcing a smile that felt like chewing gravel. Mia, lurking by the window, gave me a thumbs up, her phone already recording. Jake, darling, Karen cooed, her voice dripping with the kind of fake sweetness you'd find in diet soda. Let's not make this messy. I'm sure we can sort this out. Darling, I wanted to hurl my coffee mug at her, but I kept my cool. Sort out how you broke into my house and rented it for $175 a night? Yeah, let's chat. Her smile faltered, just for a second, but it was enough to know I'd hit a nerve. She recovered fast, flipping open her notebook like she was about to read me the Constitution. I didn't break in, she said, her tone sharp enough to cut glass. I was under the impression this property was available for management. A mutual acquaintance provided the key. Mutual acquaintance? My mind flashed to Carl, but he'd sworn he didn't give her the key. I pressed, keeping my voice steady. Who's this acquaintance, Karen? And how'd you get a key to my house? She waved a hand, dismissive, like I was a fly buzzing around her perfect scam. Details, Jake. Let's focus on solutions. I'm willing to split the profits, say 60-40. I've put in a lot of work. I laughed, a short, barking sound that echoed off the pines. Work? You mean leaving mints on my pillows and trashing my plumbing? Hard pass. Her eyes narrowed, and she stepped closer, her perfume so strong it could knock out a skunk. You don't want to play hardball, Jake. I have connections. This could get ugly. Connections? This wasn't a mob movie. This was a middle-aged woman in a blazer threatening me on my own porch. I leaned in, matching her vibe. Ugly's my favorite game, Karen. Keep talking. Mia, bless her chaotic soul, chose that moment to stroll out, casually filming with her phone. Oh, hi, Karen. Love the blazer. Say, how's that rental empire going? Karen's face went from smug to sour, like she'd bitten into a lemon. She pointed at Mia, her manicured nail trembling. Turn that off, or I'll sue you for defamation. Mia grinned, zooming in. Defamation? Honey, you're the one renting a house you don't own. Smile for the camera. Karen's composure cracked. She snatched at Mia's phone, but Mia danced back, laughing. Not today, property manager of the year. I stepped between them, my voice low. Karen, you've got two options. Explain yourself now, or explain it to a judge. I've got renter's statements, your business card, and a post office clerk ready to spill. What's it gonna be? She froze, her notebook slipping slightly in her grip. For a moment, I thought she'd bolt. Instead, she straightened, her smile returning like a bad rash. You're making a mistake, she said, turning to her SUV. I'll be in touch. She drove off, tires kicking up dust, leaving me and Mia staring at her taillights. Well, that was anticlimactic, Mia said, pocketing her phone. I shook my head. She's not done. That was her sizing me up. I replayed the conversation in my head, kicking myself for not getting more on record. But we had her rattled, and that was something. Back inside, Mia uploaded the video to a private cloud drive, just in case Karen's connections included a hacker. I called a locksmith to change every lock on the cabin, the old ones creaking as he worked. While he drilled, I checked my security camera's SD card, which I'd pulled from the now-dead device. It had footage from early July. Karen, clear as day, unlocking my door with a key, carrying a box labeled Airbnb supplies. She'd even waved at the camera, like she knew it was there and didn't care. The arrogance was staggering. Mia, meanwhile, had rallied the Smoky Mountain neighbors and censored group. By evening, we had messages from 3 more renters who'd stayed at my cabin, all willing to provide statements. One, a guy named Tom, said Karen had charged him extra for firewood usage, my firewood, which I chopped myself. Another renter mentioned a cleaning fee for a stain on my couch that wasn't there when I left. The more I learned, the more I wanted to drive to Karen's gated community and staple her notebook to her forehead. But I needed to be smart, not impulsive. I called a lawyer friend, Sarah, who specialized in property disputes. She was all business, her voice crackling over the phone. Jake, you've got a slam dunk case for trespassing, fraud, maybe even theft. Give me everything. Receipts, statements, that video. And don't confront her again without me. I promised to play nice, but my mind was racing. Karen thought she could intimidate me with vague threats and a blazer. She was about to learn I wasn't just a guy with a cabin. I was a guy with a plan. As night fell, the cabin felt less like home and more like a crime scene. The creak of the porch swing sounded like a warning. Mia crashed on the couch again, muttering about Karen's downfall in her sleep. I sat up, staring at the guest book, its cheerful entries mocking me. Karen had played her hand, and it was bold. But I was ready to raise the stakes. Tomorrow, I'd start building my case, brick by sarcastic, legally airtight brick. Karen's empire was about to crumble, and I'd be there with a sledgehammer. The next morning, I woke to the smell of burnt toast and Mia's cursing in the kitchen. Your toaster's possessed, Jake, she yelled, waving a charred slice like a flag of surrender. I stumbled in, rubbing sleep from my eyes, the cabin's familiar creaks now laced with the ghost of Karen's lavender air freshener. My phone buzzed with a text from Sarah, my lawyer friend. Meet me at my office, 10 a.m. Bring everything. I grinned, feeling the first spark of control since this mess started. Karen thought she could outsmart me with her notebook and connections. I was about to bury her in paperwork and pettiness. Mia and I spent the early hours organizing our evidence like we were prepping for a true crime documentary. We had the Wilson statement, screenshots from the Airbnb listing, the post office clerk's printout, and that glorious security camera footage of Karen waltzing into my cabin like she owned the deed. Mia added a folder of Facebook group complaints, each one painting Karen as the HOA dictator of everyone's nightmares. One post claimed she'd tried to find a guy for unauthorized bird feeders. I snorted. What's next? Taxing squirrels for loitering. We drove to Sarah's office in Knoxville, the Smokies' green ridges blurring past as Mia blasted a playlist of 90s punk to set the vibe. Sarah's office was a cramped room above a coffee shop, smelling of espresso and old books. She was a no-nonsense woman in her 40s, her desk buried under legal pads and empty Red Bull cans. Jake, she said, peering over her glasses, this is a gold mine. Trespassing, fraud, unjust enrichment. Karen's looking at civil and criminal charges. I leaned back, the chair creaking under me. How bad can we make it for her? Sarah smirked, scribbling notes. Bad. You've got proof she accessed your property without permission, rented it for profit, and misrepresented herself as the owner. We're talking restitution, damages, maybe jail time if the DA's feeling spicy. She flipped through the renter's statements, her pen tapping. First, we file a civil suit for the money she made, at least $15,000, plus damages for emotional distress and property wear. Then, we push for a criminal complaint. Breaking and entering, theft of services, the works. I liked her style. Precise, ruthless, and just a little bit evil. As we plotted, Mia got a notification from the Facebook group. Jake? You need to see this. She showed me a new post from Smoky Mountain Neighbors and censored. A photo of my cabin, captioned, "Beware this scam listing. Owners fighting back." Someone had leaked our story, and the comments were a wildfire. Locals piled on, sharing their own Karen horror stories. She'd threatened to tow a neighbor's car for blocking her view, demanded a family remove their Halloween decorations for being tacky, even tried to shut down a community bake sale for health code violations. I grinned. She's not just my villain. She's the whole mountains. But then, a curveball. Karen herself commented on the post. This is slander. I've done nothing but improve this community. The cabin's owner abandoned it, and I stepped in to maintain its value. Lawsuit incoming. I stared at the screen, my coffee turning to acid in my stomach. Abandoned? I'd been gone 6 months, not 6 years. And maintain its value. The only thing she'd maintained was her bank account. Mia cackled, typing a reply. Girl, you're renting a house you don't own. Save the lies for court. Sarah grabbed my phone. Don't engage. She's baiting you. Sarah was right, but the urge to clap back was strong. Instead, I channeled my rage into action. We drove to the county sheriff's office to file a criminal complaint. The deputy, a guy named Rodriguez with a mustache that could star in a Western, listened as I laid out the story. He raised an eyebrow at the security footage. This her, waving at the camera? Bold move. I nodded, my jaw tight. She's not bold, she's delusional. Rodriguez took copies of everything, promising to forward it to the DA. We'll need to inspect the property, he said. Any chance she's still accessing it? The question hit like a punch. I hadn't considered that Karen might still have a key. The locksmith had changed the locks, but what if she'd made copies before? I called Carl, who was out fishing but swore he'd patrol the cabin like a hawk. If she shows up, I'll run her off with my tackle box, he growled. I believed him. Carl's tackle box was less a fishing kit and more a survivalist's armory. Back at the cabin, I noticed something new. A stack of flyers on the porch, advertising Swanson Properties. Your Smoky Mountain Escape. They listed my cabin's address, with Karen's phone number in bold. I laughed, a bitter sound that scared a nearby crow. She wasn't just scamming, she was advertising it like a Black Friday sale. I bagged the flyers as evidence, my hands shaking with a mix of rage and glee. Every move she made was another nail in her coffin. That evening, Mia and I staked out the cabin again, parked in the shadows with a thermos of coffee and a bag of beef jerky. The air was thick with the hum of cicadas, the ridge glowing under a half moon. Around 9 p.m., headlights swept the road. Not Karen's SUV, but a black sedan with tinted windows. It slowed near the cabin, idled for a minute, then sped off. Mia frowned. That's not a renter. Too sneaky. I agreed. Karen had mentioned connections. Was this one of them, scoping me out? My skin prickled, but I wasn't backing down. I texted Sarah the license plate number, just in case. She replied instantly, stay sharp. I'm drafting the lawsuit. We'll hit her with it tomorrow. As Mia and I sat in the dark, the cabin's silhouette looming like a silent witness, I felt the tension coiling tighter. Karen was playing dirty, but I was playing smarter. She'd underestimated me, thinking I'd roll over for her 60-40 deal. Big mistake. I was about to turn her rental empire into a cautionary tale, and I'd enjoy every sarcastic second of it. The cabin's porch light flickered as I sat at the kitchen table, the glow casting jagged shadows across the guest book that still mocked me with Karen's mint-scented audacity. It was barely dawn, the Smokies cloaked in fog so thick it looked like the mountains were holding their breath. Mia was sprawled on the couch, snoring softly, her phone still open to this Smoky Mountain Neighbors and censored group. Last night's mystery sedan had left me on edge, and Sarah's text about the lawsuit being filed today was the only thing keeping my nerves from fraying like my old porch swing. Karen was about to get served, and I don't mean mints on pillows. My phone buzzed with an email from Airbnb, finally unfrozen from their bureaucratic coma. They'd removed the listing and issued refunds to the renters, but Karen's account was under review. Under review? She'd hijacked my home, and they were treating it like a bad Yelp rating. I forwarded the email to Sarah, who replied with a single emoji, hammer. I took it as a promise of legal carnage. But before I could savor the thought, a new post popped up in the Facebook group. Karen Swanson is suing the cabin owner for slander. Support her fight against lies. The poster? Smoky Rental Queen, Karen's not-so-subtle alias. I laughed so hard I nearly choked on my coffee. Slander? The only thing I was slandering was her taste in throw blankets. Mia woke up, rubbing her eyes. What's so funny? Did Karen send you a cease and desist written in Comic Sans? I showed her the post, and her grin turned feral. She's doubling down. This is gonna be good. The comments were a mix of outrage and popcorn emojis, with locals calling Karen out for her laundry list of petty crimes. One user, Bear Trap Bob, claimed she tried to fine him for excessive firewood stacking. I screenshotted it all, my digital war chest growing heavier by the hour. Then, a knock at the door. I froze, my hand tightening around my mug. It was 7 a.m., too early for visitors, unless Karen had decided to escalate from veiled threats to a full-on ambush. Mia grabbed a kitchen knife, whispering, "If it's her, I'm carving Property Manager of the Year into her blazer." I shot her a look, but couldn't help smirking. I opened the door, ready for anything, only to find Deputy Rodriguez, his mustache looking extra authoritative in the morning light. "Morning, Jake," he said, holding a clipboard. "Got a warrant to search the property." DA's taking this seriously. Relief washed over me, followed by a surge of adrenaline. The sheriff's office had moved faster than I'd expected. Rodriguez and a second deputy combed the cabin, noting the guest book, the tacky welcome mat, and the stack of Karen's flyers. They bagged the security camera's SD card as evidence, Rodriguez chuckling at Karen's waif. "This lady's got more confidence than a cat in a dog park," he said. I nodded, my jaw tight. Confidence is one word for it. As they left, Rodriguez tipped his hat. "We're looking into her. Stay out of trouble, yeah?" Trouble? I was the one trying to keep my cabin from becoming Karen's Airbnb empire. By 10 a.m., Sarah called to confirm the lawsuit was filed. $150,000 in damages, covering the $15,000 Karen pocketed, plus property damage, emotional distress, and punitive damages for her egregious conduct. I love that phrase. It sounded like something you'd carve on a Karen's tombstone. Sarah also mentioned the DA was reviewing the criminal complaint. "If we're lucky, she'll face charges by next week," she said. I wasn't feeling lucky. Karen's Facebook post meant she wasn't going down quietly. She was fighting dirty, and I needed a trump card. Enter old man Carl, my secret weapon. He showed up at noon, smelling like fish and regret, with a story that made my jaw drop. "Found something in my shed," he grumbled, holding up a small metal box. Inside, a spare key to my cabin, one I'd given him years ago, wrapped in a note. "Jake's cousin, emergency use." The note was in Karen's handwriting, matching the guest book's looping script. "Found it last month," Carl said. "Thought I'd misplaced it." She must have swiped it when I was out. I stared at the key, my blood boiling. Karen hadn't just broken in. She'd played Carl like a fiddle, using her cousin, lie to steal access. Mia, eavesdropping, clapped her hands. "That's felony-level stuff, right? Breaking and entering, theft, fraud. She's toast." I wasn't so sure. Karen's connections kept nagging at me. That black sedan last night wasn't a coincidence. I called Sarah, who nearly shouted when I described the key. "That's direct evidence of theft and intent. Get it to me now." I handed the box to Carl, who promised to deliver it to Sarah's office, muttering about teaching that woman a lesson with my fishing pole. As Carl left, Mia got another Facebook alert. Karen had posted again, this time with a photo of me on my porch, captioned, "This man is harassing an honest businesswoman. Stand with me." The photo was grainy, probably taken by that sedan's driver. My stomach churned. She was turning this into a public smear campaign, painting me as the villain. The comments were split. Some locals defended me. Others bought her sob story, calling me a greedy homeowner. Mia typed a reply, but I stopped her. "Let her dig her own grave," I said. The more she talks, the more she incriminates herself. That afternoon, I drove to Karen's gated community, not to confront her, but to scope out her world. Her house was a McMansion, all fake stone and oversized windows, with a white SUV parked out front. A neighbor, watering his lawn, spotted me and wandered over. "You hear about Karen?" he asked, eyeing my truck. "Word travels fast in the mountains." I nodded, keeping it vague. He snorted. "She's been fleecing renters for years. Tried to rent out my garage once, claimed it was storage space. Good luck taking her down." I thanked him, my mind racing. Karen wasn't just a one-cabin criminal. She was a serial scammer. Back at the cabin, the air felt heavier, the pines whispering warnings. Karen's counterattack was in full swing, but I had the key, the renter's statements, and a lawyer who lived for blood. The lawsuit was filed, the DA was circling, and the locals were turning against her. I could almost smell her panic, mingling with that cursed lavender scent. She'd tried to outplay me, but I was ready to flip the board. The next move was mine, and it was going to hit like a freight train. The Smokies were restless that morning, the wind howling through the pines like it knew a storm was coming. And I don't mean the weather. I stood on my cabin's porch, the creak of the swing a metronome to my racing thoughts. Karen Swanson, the self-crowned property manager of the year, had turned my home into her personal slot machine, and now she was playing the victim on Facebook, painting me as the big bad wolf. But I had her key, her flyers, a stack of renter statements, and a lawyer who could smell blood from a county away. Today, the trap was closing, and I was ready to pull the lever. Mia burst out of the cabin, waving her phone like a victory flag. "Jake, you're not gonna believe this." She showed me a new post in the Smoky Mountain Neighbors and Censored group, a leaked email from Karen to a renter promising a discount if they'd testify that I'd authorized her to manage the cabin. The email was a masterclass in desperation, sprinkled with phrases like misunderstanding and my reputation is at stake. I smirked, the kind of smirk you'd give a raccoon caught in your trash. She's bribing witnesses now? That's a new low, even for her. Sarah called as I was rereading the email, her voice crackling with excitement. The DA's on board. They're charging Karen with breaking and entering, theft, and wire fraud. That email you just sent? It's tampering with witnesses. She's digging her own grave with a glitter-covered shovel. I could hear her flipping papers, probably dreaming of the courtroom takedown. The civil suit's moving forward too. We're serving her today. Want to be there? Oh, I wanted to be there more than I wanted my grandma's quilt back, unstained by Karen's renters. We drove to Karen's McMansion, Mia riding shotgun with a playlist of fight songs blasting. The process server, a wiry guy named Tony with a grin like he lived for chaos, met us outside her gated community. "This is my favorite part," he said, clutching the lawsuit papers like a winning lottery ticket. We parked across the street, watching as Tony rang her doorbell. Karen answered, her hair a blonde tornado, her blazer swapped for a tracksuit that screamed, "I'm innocent, Your Honor." Tony handed her the papers, and even from a distance, I saw her face twist like she'd swallowed a wasp. She didn't go quietly. "This is harassment," she shrieked, loud enough to scatter birds from the trees. "I'll countersue. I have connections." Tony, unfazed, tipped his cap and walked away. Mia filmed the whole thing, whispering, "Oscar-worthy meltdown." I couldn't help but laugh, a dark, bitter sound. Connections? Her only connection was to bad decisions and worse interior decorators. As Tony drove off, Karen spotted my truck and marched toward us, papers in hand, her sunglasses sliding down her nose. You think you've won? She hissed, jabbing a finger at me through my open window. This is my livelihood, Jake. You're ruining everything. I leaned back, casual as a Sunday morning. Ruining your livelihood? Karen, you stole my house. You're lucky I'm not planting your precious mints in your front lawn. Her mouth opened, then closed, like a fish realizing the hook's already set. Mia, barely containing her glee, leaned over. Say hi to the judge for us, property manager of the year. Karen stormed back to her house, slamming the door so hard it probably cracked her tacky welcome sign. But I wasn't celebrating yet. Sarah had warned me Karens don't go down without a fight, and that black sedan from the other night still haunted me. Back at the cabin, I checked the security camera, newly installed, with a shiny app that pinged my phone if so much as a leaf moved. Nothing yet, but I wasn't taking chances. I called Carl, who'd taken to patrolling the ridge with a pair of binoculars and a thermos of moonshine-laced coffee. No sign of her, he reported. But I saw that sedan again, parked near the gas station. Tinted windows, sketchy vibes. My gut twisted. Karen's connections were starting to feel less like a bluff and more like a problem. I texted Rodriguez, the deputy, about the sedan, including the plate number. He replied, running it now. Stay put. Easier said than done. The cabin felt like a pressure cooker, every creak making me jump. Mia, meanwhile, was rallying the Facebook group, posting anonymized snippets of our evidence. No lawsuit details, just enough to keep the locals buzzing. Hiker N69 chimed in. Karen tried to rent my shed last year. Knew she was shady. The support was nice, but I needed more than upvotes to win this. That afternoon, Sarah called with news. The DA had issued a warrant for Karen's arrest. They're picking her up tomorrow, she said. The email tampering pushed them over the edge. Plus, your neighbor's key? That's a slam dunk for theft. I exhaled, the weight on my chest loosening just a fraction. But then Mia got a notification. Karen had posted a video on her Smoker Rental Queen account, sobbing about community harassment and false accusations. She even had the nerve to mention my cabin, claiming she'd saved it from neglect. Neglect? The only thing neglected was her moral compass. The video backfired spectacularly. Locals flooded the comments, calling out her lies. One user, GunOhmLover42, posted a photo of their own gnome, captioned, Karen tried to find me for this. Team Jake. I laughed, but it was short-lived. That evening, my security app pinged, motion detected. I opened the feed, heart pounding, and saw a figure in a hoodie near the porch, spray paint in hand. They scrawled liar across my mailbox before bolting. The camera caught a glimpse of their car, the black sedan. I sent the footage to Rodriguez, my hands shaking with rage. Karen wasn't just fighting. She was escalating to vandalism. As night fell, the cabin felt like a fortress under siege. Mia and I barricaded the doors, half joking about setting booby traps. Carl called, his voice gruff. Saw that sedan peel out. I'm camping on the ridge tonight. Nobody's touching your place. I thanked him, picturing him with his tackle box and moonshine, ready to go full Rambo. Karen's empire was cracking, but she was thrashing like a cornered animal. Tomorrow, the law would come for her. But tonight, I slept with one eye open, dreaming of the moment her blazer hit the cell block floor. The Smokies woke to a sunrise that painted the ridges gold, but I was too wired to care. My cabin now felt like a battlefield, its cedar walls scarred by Karen's schemes and that spray-painted liar on my mailbox. I stood on the porch, coffee gone cold, replaying the security footage of last night's hoodie-wearing vandal. The black sedan, Karen's mystery connection, was my last loose end. Today, she'd face the law, and I'd be there to watch her property manager of the year crown hit the dirt. Mia was up, scrolling the Smoky Mountain Neighbors and Censored group, where Karen's sob story video was getting roasted harder than my grandma's Thanksgiving turkey. GunOhmLover42 had started a petition to ban her from the community, with 200 signatures and counting. Mia grinned, tossing me a granola bar. She's toast, Jake. The whole mountain's ready to yeet her into next week. I nodded, but my gut churned. Karen was a cornered raccoon, and those don't go down quietly. Sarah called at 8 a.m., her voice sharp as a tack. DA's picking her up in an hour. Meet me at the sheriff's office. Bring the new footage. I grabbed my evidence folder, now thicker than a phone book, and we drove to Knoxville, the morning mist curling around Mia's rattling Honda like it was auditioning for a horror flick. At the sheriff's office, Deputy Rodriguez greeted us, his mustache practically vibrating with purpose. Got a hit on that sedan, he said. Registered to a guy named Vince, Karen's cousin. Small-time PI, likes to play tough. He's in custody for the vandalism. Cousin Vince. So that was her connection. I pictured a wannabe detective in a cheap suit, probably the one who'd snapped that grainy photo of me for Karen's smear campaign. Rodriguez showed me a mugshot, a guy with a receding hairline and a scowl that said, I peaked in high school. I smirked. Looks like Karen's empire is a family affair. Rodriguez nodded. He's talking already. Says Karen paid him to keep an eye on you. Didn't expect to get caught with spray paint. As we spoke, a squad car pulled up, and there she was, Karen Swanson, handcuffed, her blonde hair a mess, her tracksuit swapped for a wrinkled blouse. No sunglasses, no blazer, just pure, unfiltered panic. She spotted me through the window and shouted, "This is a setup. I'm innocent." I waved, my smile sharp enough to cut glass. "Tell it to the judge, mint lady." Mia, filming from the sidelines, whispered, "This is better than Netflix." Inside, Sarah laid out the charges like a buffet: breaking and entering, theft, wire fraud, witness tampering, and now conspiracy for hiring Vince to vandalize my property. Karen's lawyer, a nervous guy who looked like he'd rather be anywhere else, stammered about a plea deal. Sarah shut him down. "Your client ran a scam out of my client's home. She's looking at years, not months." Karen's face went gray, and for the first time, I saw her without that smug veneer. It was glorious. The civil suit was the cherry on top. In court, a week later, Sarah presented our evidence like a maestro conducting a symphony of justice. The judge, a stern woman with zero patience for Karen's crocodile tears, wasn't buying her. I was helping the community defense. The renter's statements, the stolen key, the security footage, and that damning email sealed her fate. The courtroom was packed with locals, including Hikerden 69 and Gun-Own Lover 42, who'd shown up with a tiny gnome statue as a silent jab. I stifled a laugh, my chest swelling with something like pride. The verdict came fast, $150,000 in damages, covering every cent Karen made, plus property repairs, emotional distress, and a punitive slap for her flagrant disregard for property rights. The criminal case was even sweeter. Karen pleaded guilty to reduced charges to avoid a trial, earning 6 months in jail and 3 years probation. Vince got community service, mostly because he'd spilled everything to save his own skin. As Karen was led away, she shot me a look, not anger, but defeat. I winked, just to twist the knife. Back at the cabin, I scrubbed every trace of her. The live, laugh, love, mat went in the trash. The lavender air freshener got yeeted into the woods, and I burned that floral throw blanket in the fire pit, the flames crackling like applause. Mia threw a Karen's Gone party, with Carl bringing his moonshine and half the Facebook group showing up. Bear Trap Bob gifted me a new gnome, this one holding a tiny "No Karen" sign. I set it by the mailbox, covering the faded liar with a fresh coat of paint. The twist? While cleaning the cabin, I found a hidden USB drive taped under the kitchen sink. It was Karen's, loaded with spreadsheets tracking her rental empire, not just my cabin, but 2 other properties she'd scammed. I handed it to Rodriguez, who confirmed the other owners were pressing charges. Karen's 6 months might stretch longer, and her McMansion was already on the market to cover her legal fees. I pictured her in her cell, dreaming of mints and lost glory, and grinned. The cabin felt like mine again, the creaks familiar, the air clean of lavender. I hung my art back on the walls, restocked my firewood, and sat on the porch, the Smokies stretching out like they were saluting me. Karen had tried to steal my home, but I'd turned her game into her undoing. The locals still talk about it, my gnome's become a legend, and somewhere, Karen's probably writing a manifesto in her notebook. Good luck with that, Property Manager of the Year. I'll be here, sipping coffee, knowing I won. Thank you for being with us. Please share in the comments where you are watching from and whether you liked everything, and see you next time.